So the first thing I want to remind myself of, and hopefully all of you of, is two of the main goals behind Ramadan. And those two goals, I extract them from the ayat of Ramadan itself that belong to Surah Al-Baqarah. The words at the end of the ayat of Ramadan have la'alla in them. And la'alla in Arabic means so that, or hopefully. So Allah gave us the month of Ramadan, and there's a long discourse on Ramadan, and at the end of that discourse He says, so that. What's the purpose? And He says, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. He says, so you could be grateful. So that all of you could be grateful. So if you want to juice the entire course of Ramadan, at the end of it, what do you come out as? One goal is definitely you come out, and I come out more grateful to Allah than we were before Ramadan. And that's an incredible thing to think about, because I'm not just saying you're grateful because when Ramadan is over, and you sit there for lunch, and before you eat, like, wait, am I supposed to eat right now? Oh yeah, alhamdulillah, it's over. And I'm grateful I can eat. Not just that kind of grateful. I actually mean something more than that. Like, are we really grateful for being given this gift of revelation? This gift of the Quran? Are we really appreciative of that? Just like you're appreciative of food that you get to eat on whatever schedule after Ramadan is over, that your body's needs are being met. There's something else inside you that also had needs. And those needs were supposed to be met in this Ramadan. And Allah, Allah gave each and every human being some light inside them, this ruh inside of us. And that light was incomplete. And it could only have been completed by the light sent down by Allah. This is what He calls nurun ala nur, light on top of light, light upon light. And that the fact that Allah sent us that light so we can complete the goodness that we have incomplete inside of ourselves, that we could do that, we should be grateful for that. That's actually the purpose of Ramadan, that we become grateful for Allah giving us the Quran, grateful for Allah giving us this guidance. The other thing about the ayat of Ramadan is that Allah Azza wa Jal tells us to make dua. وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ. He says, I will respond to whatever dua you make. So this is a month to talk to Allah a lot. Quran is Allah talking to us. Dua is us talking to Allah. And that's how a conversation becomes complete. Someone talks to you, you talk back with them. Allah talking to us is Quran. That's why we're reciting Quran, listening to Quran, engaging with the Quran. That's Allah speaking with us. And then we're making dua to Allah. We're asking Allah all kinds of things. And that's us talking to Allah. And thus our connection with Allah becomes whole. And so He says, ask me whenever. Ask me at whatever time. And whoever you are, just ask. And I will respond immediately. But at the end of that, He actually said something. He said, فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي. Then they should respond to me too. I make dua to Allah, He responds. And He says, I will respond, but I'm asking you, you should try to respond to me also. فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي. Then they should respond to me. Or at least they should try to respond to me. Now the thing about that, it's very simple. If you don't understand what I'm saying to you, and I asked you something in a foreign language, then you won't be able to respond to me. If I asked you for water, if I asked you for help, if I asked you for directions in a language you don't speak, then there's no way you can even begin to respond to me. And so when Allah says they should try to respond to me, it actually includes in it that I need to make an effort to understand what is it that Allah is asking me. I know what I'm asking Allah. I know exactly what I want. I know exactly what problems I have that I need solving. I know exactly what desires I have that I need to get fulfilled. I know exactly what goals I have that I'm hoping Allah helps me accomplish. I know exactly what I want. But am I exactly sure what Allah wants? And if I'm not sure, well, that's exactly why He gave us His words, to let us know what He wants. And He asks, you're going to ask me, but I'm asking you also. I'm putting some demands on you too. And are you going to respond to me? وَلْيُؤْمِنُوا فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي وَلْيُؤْمِنُوا بِي. And if that conversation can happen, if you can start not doing, but even if you can start asking Allah for what you need, and you start listening to Allah for what He wants from you, then He says, لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْشُدُونَ at the end of that ayah. So they can be set straight. How do I become a better person, somebody asks. How do I change my life? That ayah has in one phrase the entire solution. How do you straighten out your life? Yarshudun, literally, I would translate it as a figurative expression, so that they may straighten their lives out. So they can become upright. So they can be good. How do I become good? I become good when that conversation becomes real between me and Allah. That's what the purpose of Ramadan is supposed to be. But now that these couple of weeks are left, I wanted to highlight that we're not the first people that were given a book. And whenever Allah sent revelation, that revelation was supposed to turn into a conversation between the servant of Allah, the human being, and Allah Himself. That is the purpose of revelation. But that purpose, over time, starts getting lost. The nations that received the book of Allah before us, they lost that purpose. So the book became something else. The book just became something you recite with a beautiful voice. The book just became something that some people know a lot about, and they look like the religious leadership, and they know a lot about it, but the rest of us don't have to know anything. And if we ever have a question, we can go ask them. The book is not for all of us, the book is just for them. It's just for the scholar class, it's for the priest class, it's for the sheikh class. Those people know about the book. The rest of us just have our normal lives. Just tell us when we can eat. And just tell us if it's Eid yet or not. Well, that's all we need to know. Allah describes this phenomenon. He says, أَلَمْ يَأْنِ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَن تَخْشَعَ قُلُوبُهُمْ لِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ وَمَا نَزَلَ مِنَ الْحَقِّ. Please listen to this ayah very carefully. It's one of the scariest ayat of the Quran, describing a fear that we should have about a disease that hit people before us. They were given a book and they messed up. And now Allah is saying, you better not make their mistake with your book. Now, how does He say that? He said, isn't it already time right now? Alam ya'ni lilladhina amanu. Ya'ni comes from al-an. Al-an in Arabic actually means right now. Isn't it already time right now for those who claim that they believe? An takhsha'a qulubuhum li dhikrillah. That their hearts should be filled with awe. They should be overwhelmed with feelings of Allah's power because of remembering Allah. Allah says, isn't it yet time yet that your heart felt something? Like, you know, when you're listening to a message, when you're reading a message, your mind processes it. You understand what's being said. Allah says that's not enough. Allah wants your heart to feel something. Allah wants you to feel overwhelmed by the remembrance of Allah. What remembrance of Allah does He mean? He makes the bayan of that Himself. He says, وَمَا نَزَلَ مِنَ الْحَقِّ. That is to say, aren't their hearts filled with awe? Aren't they overwhelmed by what they hear from what came down from the truth, meaning Quran itself? Isn't it already time right now that you should feel something in your heart because of the Quran that's being read to you? Because of the Quran that you get to hear? Why hasn't that happened yet? He asked that really scary question. أَلَمْ يَأْنِ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَن تَخْشَعَ قُلُوبُهُمْ لِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. This same Quran that we hear in Salah, that we're standing in Taraweeh and listening to, that maybe you're in a super Islamic mode this month and you're even playing some recitation in the car when you're driving, but nothing's happening to my heart. I'm not feeling anything. I don't feel tears come down my eyes. I don't feel overwhelmed. You know, when somebody else gives me good news, somebody calls me and says, hey, I graduated, you're overwhelmed with joy. When somebody else says, I had a car accident, you're overwhelmed with fear. These feelings happen when other people give us a message of good news or bad news. But when Allah gives good news and bad news, when Allah gives advice, when Allah counsels, nothing happens. My heart is exactly where it was. It's just pretty sounds that are going on. And for some of us, look, Quran is being recited, or you just hit play in the car, and you're having a conversation, and Quran's playing in the background. It's like background music for you now. You know, this is فَإِذَا قُرِئَ الْقُرْآنِ. Then, you know, Allah Azza wa Jalla says, فَاسْتَمِعُوا لَهُ وَأَنصِتُوا. Listen to it carefully and silence. Be quiet. Quran is being recited. This is the word of Allah being recited. This is, as soon as it's being recited, whether it's an MP3 you're playing, or some app, or whatever, it's not just a file that you just hit play on. These are the words of Allah. You're supposed to be in awe and say, shh, Allah is talking. And if you really want to have that conversation, pause and have your conversation. You know, sometimes you go to restaurants in Ramadan, usually they're playing music in the background. Right? In Ramadan, they're playing Quran in the background. And every time I go to a restaurant that's playing Quran in the background, I literally respectfully go and ask, can you please turn that off? And I'm like, wait, you're the guy with the beard. You're supposed to say, turn that up, yo. But you know what? People are talking in the restaurant. People are engaged in conversation. People are socializing. How are they socializing with the words of Allah, just background noise? This is the kalimatullahi al-ulya. This is the word of Allah, that it's in the highest place. If we can't give it that respect, then we shouldn't be listening to it at the time. If you're going to listen to it, then drop everything else. Drop everything else. Be silent.